Welcome to Becoming Limitless. This is the podcast for entrepreneurs who want to optimize their brain and their body with biohacking. I'm going to teach you how to eliminate brain fog and upgrade your health so you can have more productivity, energy, and growth in your business. I'm your host, Tanessa Shears. Let's jump in. Welcome back to the Becoming Limitless podcast. I am your host, Tanessa Shears. If we haven't met before, welcome to the podcast. I'm so excited to have you here. I am a health consultant and I work with entrepreneurs that usually feel like really stressed out or tired all the time, or they find they're super distracted at work. So when clients usually come to me, they feel tired when they wake up in the morning and low energy throughout the day, and they have trouble focusing on their tasks. They get distracted all the time and they can't get the important stuff done because of brain fog. And clients usually reach out to me when they get to that point in their business where they're making money. Maybe they've crossed into six figures, but their health has taken a back seat. And because of that, so has their performance. And they find that they can't even enjoy the life that they're trying to create, like the time freedom and the schedule freedom with a business. So what I do is I use biohacking and science to upgrade their performance capacity and optimize their brains and their bodies. And I help them create a personalized, standard operating procedure, or like a protocol for your health so that, you can feel really productive and focused and high performing. And the goal is to be able to get done more in a day than you used to be able to do a week. And with that time and focus, you were able to scale your business faster. Now, I can definitely say from an experience that I know what it takes to have high energy and still run a full-time business. In fact, I'm doing it right now with a 1-year-old at home, and I'm still having the job of being, an at-home mom, as well as running my business, as well as being a wife, keeping up with my health and fitness, and eating good food, meal planning. I'm doing all of it. So I know that it takes a lot of energy to keep everything going so that when we hit the end of the day, and my business gets shut down for the end of the day, that I am able to be present with my daughter and my husband. That's what's really important to me. I don't want to be crashing into the couch and feel so exhausted that I can't spend any time with them. So that is why this week we are talking about how to have more energy, because it is crucial for us as entrepreneurs to have energy, whether we're showing up on interviews, whether we're showing up to our client calls or with business partners. We want to have that energy and that vibrancy that allows us to be effective communicators and to live into the passion side of the business. I mean, that's why we started it in the first place, right? So the idea for this episode actually comes from an email request that I got, and I was emailed with this question. Tanessa, where does our energy come from? Sometimes we have more, sometimes we have less, but we don't always know why and how to build more of it. So that is what we're going to be covering on today's episode 22 of the podcast. We're going to dive into all the different types of energy, and I'm going to be giving you action-packed strategies on exactly how to generate each type of energy. So from all the high performance reading that I've done and in experimentation with myself and work with my clients, there are generally 3 positive emotions that high performers and entrepreneurs that are having high levels of success in their business are constantly trying to seek out. So those are confidence, joy, and flow. They want to feel like they know what they're doing and they're showing up and making a positive impact in the world. They want to feel joy and like they are experiencing pleasure from what they're doing, and it's fun. They also want to feel flow, that ability to just get into a project and lose yourself, because it is just not only an extension of who you are, but it is just what you do best, right? And our ability to feel those things, confidence, joy, and flow, comes down to our energy and how much of it we have and how we can actually maintain it. Now, for the most part, when we want energy, we've been taught to look outside of ourselves. We've been taught to do, quick detoxes, and we've taught to go to coffee or go to prescriptions and all of these type of things that are fads that get our energy up. I mean, who hasn't chugged at some point a couple of Red Bull in order to revitalize your brain when you're studying for university exams? I know I have. But at the base of it, people just want to feel good again. They're tired of that massive energy dip that they're getting, or maybe it's just a sustained dip and you've been in it for a couple weeks or a couple months and you just don't feel like yourself anymore and you're no longer enjoying your business and your clients or your customers or your family time. It's just not the same vitality with which you used to live. Or perhaps it's a roller coaster, meaning you'll have some days that are high energy and some that are low. Perhaps you're even experiencing it as daily cycles of energy where you are one of those people that wake up full of energy, but by about afternoon, you want a nap or to watch, your favorite Real Housewives episode. You just kind of want to escape. And you get those daily cycles. Some people wake up so groggy, get a pickup around 10 to noon, and then crash again. But at the base of it all, we just want to feel good. And without that energy, we have trouble being present and focused all day. Our mood is low and our body is physically tired. And that is just not going to be conducive to a fulfilling business as an entrepreneur. So today we're going to be talking about the 3 different types of energy that you need to protect fiercely and how to generate it. The first type of energy is mental energy. So that's actually going to be the energy that your brain has, the energy with which you are able to clearly think of tasks and stay focused, and the alertness of your thinking and the clarity you have and how sharp you feel and how productive your days are. The next type of energy is physical energy. So this is literally how your body feels. Are you overtrained? Are you not recovering properly from your workouts? Do you just feel physically sore and tired all the time? The last type is emotional energy. So this is what we kind of feel on a body level. So we have mental in the brain, physical in the body, and emotional is more kind of our spiritual energy. Like, are we inspired? Do we feel amazing about the work that we're showing up to do? Do we feel that confidence and that joy and that flow? We need energy to help sustain our emotional well-being, physical and mental. And lower energy hurts high performance. Our productivity has so much more to do with the energy you feel than it does to how good you are at making to-do lists or using your systems or your schedules or your calendars. All of that will not be effective if your mental energy is not at peak capacity. I mean, you're not walking around operating cloudy, full of brain fog at 50%. How can we get you up to 90% of peak performance so that we can sustain high levels of energy and high levels of productivity? I mean, if you think about it, energy is what gets us moving. I mean, it's what makes things fun and enjoyable. And most importantly, that energy is what fuels self-discipline. I actually just did an entire episode on the power of self-discipline on the podcast. It's episode 17. If you have not yet listened to that episode, it is really good. I highly suggest you check that out. If you have your energy in line, but you're struggling with your self-discipline, this will be a really key episode to tune back into. I think it's also important to note that stress is actually one of the biggest energy killers as well. Stress actually lowers brain-derived neurotrophic factor. And we're going to talk about that a bit later. But what it does is it actually helps with the growth of brain cells. So if you're stressed out, your body is unable to effectively reproduce brain cells, and it really slows down cognitive function, so your ability to think. Increased cortisol, which is a result of high levels of long-term stress, leads to inflammation and brain fog, and this is just going to kill your energy. So we're going to talk about all of this today, and first we're going to dive into mental energy. When we're talking about mental energy, we are talking about the energy in your brain. Brain energy and biohacking. That's essentially what this entire Becoming Limitless podcast is about. It's about helping you to create that mental energy. So the best resource, if you want to improve your mental energy, go back and listen to the previous 21 episodes or any of the episodes of this podcast that you've missed. They are key. We talk about everything from food to sleep to productivity to movement, all things that will help you clear your brain of inflammation. The other thing you can do is if you want a shortcut to help boost your mental energy, you can download my Entrepreneur's Playbook. It's called 12 Ways to Biohack Your Energy. It's at tanessashears.com/playbook. I will leave a link in the description, but it is essentially my top 12 biohacks for your brain specifically that help you have high energy mornings so that you're feeling really clear. So if you haven't downloaded that, after you've done listening to this podcast, make sure you go and download that because it'll give you a great head start. So if you want mental energy, essentially you need to eliminate brain fog. As we talked about, brain fog is essentially a collection of symptoms. It's things like, when you're forgetting a word, you're just like, what is that? It feels like you're kind of confused and your thinking is not very sharp. Perhaps, you're just finding that it's hard to come up with creative ideas and you're making copy and it's just, you can't get into flow. Everything kind of just feels muddy and there's no productivity going on in your business because you kind of spend all your time doing the busy work. Nothing important gets done. I mean, how it's showing up are those days where you get to the end of your workday and you didn't do anything that moved your business forward. Or perhaps you're just staring at your screen blankly and you can't come up with any words to write. Say if you're trying to write a book, or you can't be creative with your product ideas. There are so many ways this is showing up, and what is causing it? Inflammation in your body that has gone unchecked because of poor quality sleep, making nutrition choices that either cause inflammation in your body or just are downright not good for you, like processed foods, a lot of sugar, a lot of flour. And then lastly, chronic stress that is allowed to build and go unchecked. These are the big three that we need to get out of the way first. So I usually recommend to my clients, to anybody that asks, that we usually start with sleep because that's something that is so easy to start improving. If you think about it, improving your sleep doesn't cost you any time. It doesn't cost you any money, and it's going to give you the biggest bang for your buck. I like to work on this one first because I find if your brain is actually feeling fatigued and tired and brain foggy all the time, you're not actually going to be able to perform. And there is a way higher likelihood that you're going to have trouble sticking to any other habits or discipline that you have set up to try to improve the other areas. Now, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on mental energy because, like I said, this entire podcast is about improving brain energy. But if I'm going to direct you to a couple of episodes, I would highly recommend that you check out episodes 2, 3, and 4 on sleep, 5 and 6 on food, and 20 for stress. So 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 20. Those are great places to start. I'm going to make sure that I leave those all in the description for you. All right, let's talk about physical energy. So it's important to know the difference. I find that my body can still feel really energized when I have brain fog. Alternatively, I find that my body can feel completely worn out, but my brain is still functioning normally. So it is really important to be able to differentiate the difference between what type of energy you're struggling with. So mental is how clear your thoughts are. Physical is what your body feels like. Now, we can't talk about physical energy without talking about exercise. So when you exercise, like I mentioned before, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, or just BDNF, it's a type of protein that is released when you exercise, and it causes new brain cells to grow. It makes you smarter, and on top of that, it helps, meaning exercise helps to reduce your stress. Now, I want to say it doesn't have to be crazy 6 days a week in the gym for an hour each time just to take advantage of what is going to give you physical energy. I know in the episode that I did on 10 health mistakes that you don't want to be making, one of them was over-exercising and overtraining. So you actually can overdo it, which will deplete your physical energy. So we need to make sure that we find that sweet spot for you. So one of the very first things I like to set up when we're looking at our physical energy is a basic steps per day goal. We don't have to have a fancy watch to do it. We can either pick up like a $10 step counter, which is called a pedometer. You can pick it up on Amazon or at Walmart. Most phones even have one built in if you want to keep your phone in your pocket all day long. We want to pick one of those up so that we can get an idea of how active we are currently as an overall lifestyle. I mean, think about this. Our bodies were designed to move. We weren't, since the beginning of time, sitting all day long. We were moving and hunting and gathering and, creating fire and all of that kind of stuff. Like, our bodies are designed to move. So the goal number one I usually set is a minimum of 5,000 steps per day. Now, this is not crazy. This is not the preset goal that comes on our activity watches that says 5,000 or 10,000 steps a day is a goal. I'm just saying, let's start getting moving. If you're already at 5,000, bump it to 6,000. We're always looking at becoming just a little bit more active to help create that body feeling of energy. It comes down to moving and not spending time sitting all day. I mean, even if I have clients that work out, I ask them to get their steps up. I've said this before, we don't want to be active couch potatoes. Active couch potatoes are people that are sedentary and seated all day long, which is a lot of us entrepreneurs because we're in front of our computers all day long just staring at the screens. We're sedentary and then we get up and work out. That's an active couch potato. We just want to be active. We don't want any part of the couch potato. So I do want to say though, if you have goals to build muscle or run a marathon, obviously there's going to be a specific training protocol to that you're going to want to follow. But for most of us, we're desk bound, and just getting movement started is what is going to allow us to start feeling that physical energy that is going to keep us healthy and strong. I know that I've heard Tony Robbins give this really funny example about how our whole lives are organized in a box. I mean, think about this. He says, we live in a box for our house, we eat our box cereal in the morning, and then we go get in our box to drive all the way to another box, and then we get out of that box and go sit in a chair in another box all day, and then we drive home, and then we eat dinner out of our box while we're sitting in front of our box, meaning our TV, and we just sit in front of it, and our whole life is about the box. It's sitting in our house, sitting in front of our TV, sitting in our cars, sitting at our desk. It is just sitting. So my challenge for you is to get out of the box. Get outside in nature. Get some daylight on your skin. And I mean, if you don't want to work out, it doesn't have to be complicated. 3 45-minute segments of activity per week is all you need. Plus, maybe some time spent stretching, especially if you're sitting all day long. Or you could even structure it as 4 to 5 30-minute sessions per week. So one of the cool things that most people don't know is that exercise is actually cumulative if done in bouts of 10 minutes or longer. So for example, if you don't have time to get a workout in or just move your body, walk for 10 minutes, 3 different times per day. It is a wonderful way to start. And we think that this isn't significant. This isn't hard enough. This doesn't work my muscles or make me sweat, so it can't be effective. That is incorrect. I want you to just think about exercise is also about how it makes you feel and your energy and your mental clarity. It is not just about what the scale says or about, what you look like in a pair of jeans. I mean, that is important to some of us for sure, but I'm talking about how to generate more energy today, and that's going to mean moving. So don't feel like you're stuck. If you have no idea what to do, work with a trainer, a personal trainer. Or right now, we're in the middle of a pandemic and group classes are actually closed down in our area right now. But when group classes are back in, do that. The environments are so fun. There's upbeat music. Everyone's working together towards a common goal. Or you can do my very favorite thing and spend $14 Canadian a month and download the Peloton app. There are strength workouts on there. There are spin workouts, treadmill, boot camp, cardio, yoga, meditation, stretching. The options available on the Peloton app are phenomenal. And I think for the price that they charge for that, they beyond over deliver, especially in the quality of their instructors. I am such a fan. If I do a spin class, I'm always either doing, one of Cody's classes or Jess King's classes or Alex's classes or Matt Wilper's class. You get your favorite instructors and you go back to them and you look forward to it all the time. So if you haven't checked it out, do it. You won't regret it. It's so much fun. But besides that, if you don't want to become a Peloton obsessor like me, that's fine. There's plenty of workouts on YouTube. You can find 20-minute workouts or hour workouts, strength, cardio, anything. There's so many free things. You could just work out on your own and come up with your own programs. There are those fitness gyms that they have outside. I know here in Vancouver, there are I don't know how to describe them. It's like an outdoor gym and the equipment is all metal. And it's not that complicated, but you can do things like lat pull downs. You can do push-ups or step ups. There's little ellipticals. It's basically outdoor, rainproof, because we're in Vancouver, gym equipment. And you can come up with all kinds of fun stuff on that. You don't have to be stuck indoors. You go with a friend who knows what they're doing and let them guide you through a program. Just move your body and don't get caught up in needing to have it be fancy or long or complicated. The goal is to generate energy. Tony Robbins, and I'm going to come back to a couple of examples. Tony Robbins says that emotion is created by motion. I'm going to say that again. Emotion is created by motion. So I had the privilege of going to a Tony Robbins seminar back in 2017, I think, and it was so fascinating. The point of the seminar, he was part of a larger seminar, so he gave a 4-hour presentation, and what I came out with it is that you are able to generate energy in your body on demand. And what he showed us was how to use movement to build up the energy in your body. And if you've ever been to a Tony Robbins seminar, if you've ever seen one, there's a lot of jumping, a lot of hugging, a lot of high fives, a lot of cheering. It's getting out of your emotional and physical comfort zone. But the state and the energy to which you build into your body is absolutely incredible. And just knowing that that's available to tap into on demand is actually so neat. So if you're at work, or if you're at your desk and you don't have time to go for a walk, just get up and do some jumping jacks, do some squats, stretch, move your body, reinvigorate yourself. This helps you with your emotional energy, and it also helps you with your mental energy. The last of the 3 areas that you can generate energy that we're going to talk about today is emotional energy. This is one of those areas that I feel I have nailed down and I really excel at. So you might know, if you've been listening to any of my stories for a while now, that I suffered from generalized anxiety disorder for a long time. And I still do, but it was a lot worse back in 2015. And I had very low emotional energy at that time. It was the point in which my personal training business had actually hit 6 figures, and I was seeing 33 client hours per week on top of all of the marketing and back end of my business and programming and everything that comes into keeping the motivation in a business going. And I was so emotionally drained from being on all of the time. If you've ever worked in a one-on-one capacity, I always love the idea of it being like a show, meaning my energy directly creates the experience of that client session. So I always want to be on. But as an introvert, it can be very draining if I don't keep my emotions in check, and that if I don't schedule time to kind of take care of myself, it can get very overwhelming. So on top of that, I had already just moved out and was living on my own, and I was so lonely. I remember specifically moving out, and there's so many things when you first move out that you don't realize that you need to buy or need to have. So, things like condiments for your food, things like dish towels, things like somewhere to sit. And I remember specifically, all I had to sit in was a lawn chair. And I remember it was one of my first few nights living on my own, and I was sitting in my living room on a lawn chair crying because I was like, this is terrible. I feel so alone. Nobody told me it was going to be this lonely, right? And my energy was low. And I really had to cultivate my emotional energy because at that point, there was a lot of stuff going on. So I knew that I had to take responsibility for that. So at that time, actually, I did end up enrolling in a cognitive behavioral therapy program, which was 13 weeks. And it really got me to start seeing how my brain is helping to create this experience. But one of the most amazing things that happened to me at that time, and I think it was rather serendipitous, and it could have been just because I was looking for something at that time, but I found a podcast called the Life Coach School podcast back in 2015. And it completely changed my life. Like, you'll hear me refer to things that I've learned from one of my mentors. That's the owner of the Life Coach School. Her name is Brooke Castillo. And I talk about her work with my clients all the time. And I use it in my own life. But something profound came out of that podcast and listening to them. And I've listened to all nearly 400 episodes or so multiple times. But I learned that your thoughts create your feelings. The first time I heard this, I was like, say what? No. My living by myself is making me lonely. All these clients having so many hours back to back, so many days in a row, that's what's making me feel tired. And I had always given my emotional control to those outside of me, thinking other things caused my feelings. But this podcast presented the idea that your thoughts what create your feelings. And I was like, huh. And then I started thinking about my life and all the situations this might be true. Now think about this. Think about the last time that you were angry or really stressed out. What thoughts were you thinking? Likely they were the same thoughts on repeat. I know when I'm stressed out, I always think, I don't have enough time. How am I going to get this done? I feel like I don't get any breaks. Like my brains are cycling around the same thoughts over and over again, and they create that feeling of stress in me. Now, I do want to mention though that the feelings I'm talking about are more like the vibrations in your body. They're the chemical response to your thoughts. But they are different from emotional responses. So an emotional response is something like fear when someone leaps out at you, or you get scared or something like that. Emotions are like that physical response, and feelings are what are directed by your thoughts. So the difference is, like I said, emotions are almost reactionary, and feelings are what are directed by your thoughts. Now, most of us think that we are stuck with the thoughts we have. I didn't realize that I had the capacity to change that. And since I've learned that, I have been able to have so much control of my emotional vibrancy. And since finding out that thoughts create your feelings, I've completely changed my life. So some of the things that I have learned because I've been able to do that thought work, I am a very hard person to offend. I just don't find the point in getting offended. So I get to choose that I don't want to be offended. And it's about how I think about things. I find most things very fun. In fact, it was the motto that I had for my entire pregnancy. I don't avoid failure. I actually run into it because what I've recognized is that feeling of failure is actually caused by how I'm thinking about myself, not by the actual act of failing. I've also been able to cultivate self-discipline, and I understand what it means to be uncomfortable, and that I can think longer term than what my emotions would rather dictate. My emotions just want me to have instant gratification, but I'm able to think long term so that I can have self-discipline. I care very little about other people's judgments and opinions of me because I just don't choose any longer to live my life according to how other people think. So that was something that I have been able to grow as part of my identity when I realized my thoughts create my feelings. I'm a confident person. I say things to my clients which are hard for me to say, but necessary for them to hear. And I think that's what makes me such a good coach, is that I'm always putting the dreams and desires of my clients in front of my own emotional discomfort about having to call out things that they are doing that aren't congruent with what they say they want. And I'm willing to do that because I also know that other people's opinions of me have nothing to do with me. I can manage my own emotional energy now, and I'm constantly spending time deciding what I want to think. I mean, our programming from when we are kids just might not suit us anymore. School tells us that we should never fail. And I went through the process a couple of years ago, like uncoupling every belief I no longer wanted with what I currently think today. I questioned every belief I have ever been given. Either directly, someone has told me how to think as a child, or indirectly, both from my parents, teachers, friends. I took that time a couple of years ago to really redecide how I wanted to think based on how I wanted to feel. I mean, in my life, I have a lot of fun. And when I have fun, I have all the emotional energy that I need. This keeps me focused, resilient, and persistent. I mean, when I do guest interviews on other people's podcasts all the time, they always say to me, "You sound so passionate. You sound so energized. You sound so excited about what you're doing." And I am. And it comes down to how I have trained myself to think about my world, because I get to dictate how I feel. So perhaps at this point you're like, "Oh my gosh, that sounds great, but how the heck do you change your thinking?" my business coach gave me an example in which I could not forget. It's the example of the dog peeing on the carpet. So hear me out here. So when you first get into this realm of understanding that you can choose what you want to think, the first step is awareness. So that is like if you got a new puppy and you found a puddle of pee on the floor. That is you having gone through a thought that created a feeling, and you're just like, oops, it already happened. How do I catch it before it happens now? So think about this. If you were to train a puppy to stop peeing on the carpet, the first thing you need to do is catch the puppy peeing on the floor, right? So you'd go over and you'd be like, oh, no. Oh man, I just missed it. So that would be like you just missing yourself having a thought you didn't like. Then the next time you go to catch the puppy, you catch him midstream. You're like, okay, I got you. Let's go outside. Come on. That's like catching yourself having the thought. That's that level of awareness. The next step is you catch your puppy looking for somewhere to pee. You're like, you can see he's getting ready, finding his corner. You're like, whoop, I caught you before you happened this time. Come on out. Let's go. We're going to go pee outside in the grass. This is the equivalent of you catching your thought before it happens this time, or as it's starting to happen. So with the process of the puppy peeing and you're trying to catch it, you are catching it earlier and earlier in the process. First, you find the puddle of pee. Then you find the dog peeing. Then you find the dog almost starting to pee. Then you find the dog looking for a place to pee. And eventually you don't even have to worry about chasing your dog around to pee because he just pees outside. That is the equivalent of you hearing your thoughts for the first time and choosing not to think them or to think something different. First, you don't even recognize it until after you've thought it. Then maybe you catch yourself mid-thought. Then you catch the beginning of the thought. Then you catch yourself before you even go down that rabbit hole of thoughts, and you slowly start to be able to recognize that you can catch those thoughts and choose not to follow them down the rabbit hole, that whole spiral of thoughts that comes with the drama that we've been causing in our brain, and that it becomes the act of deciding what you want to think instead. Once you have caught yourself conditioned, all those conditioned thoughts that you've always thought, once you start catching yourself, you get to decide what you want to think instead, and that's the best part. And I like to write a lot of these thoughts down. And it's important to know that when you're deciding what thoughts you want to replace those unhelpful thoughts with, they got to be things you actually believe. So I like to think things like, this is fun. It's working. I look good. An example of one that Brooke Castillo, she's the CEO of the Life Coach School that I mentioned earlier, one of the examples she does is the example of someone winning the lottery. Just think about this for a sec. I bet you could, with your brain, imagine what it would feel like in your body if you won the lottery or someone you knew won the lottery. You could probably just sit there and think about being presented with a $5 million check, and you could think about all the things you would do with it. Now, notice this. You didn't actually get a check for the lottery. You just thought about it. So your brain helped you create all of those feelings. This is an example of how to change your state. And because of this, my brain is always chattering and light and fun. And I redirect my brain often when I find it going down the rabbit hole. And sometimes if I'm having trouble coming up with new thoughts or things I might want to think instead, I borrow someone else's thoughts. This is a really good example of how I actually use other people's podcasts, because if you think about it, the podcast you're listening to of me right now is just all of my thoughts. Everyone else's podcasts are their thoughts. So if I'm finding I'm having trouble redirecting my thoughts, I'll put on a podcast and borrow someone else's. There is a podcaster that I love to listen to his stuff. His stuff is all on self-discipline and motivation. And I make it my responsibility to change my state. So when I listen to this podcast, I get amped up and jacked up. Like I have podcasts I listen to if I want to feel light, if I want to feel motivated, if I want to feel inspired, because these help me change my state. So at the end of the day, my mental and my physical and my emotional energy are important because I see what they do for me and my business. I see what having energy in those areas do for me as a mom, for my passion and my excitement when I'm being interviewed, for my excitement when I coach my clients. I look forward to my life, and it wasn't always that way. But this mental or this emotional energy that I have been able to create, partly from developing my physical energy, partly from developing my mental energy, has really transformed my life, and I protect it fiercely because without it, I'm creating this life with my business that I can't even enjoy. So if you're at the point where you have recognized which of these categories you need to be developing a higher level of energy in, great. Now the next step is figuring out how. There are two ideas I'm going to give you to really help with this. Number one is I'm going to direct you to episode 7 of this podcast. It's all on how to create a project plan for your health. So if you're not someone that is usually very organized, you don't check in with yourself, this episode will help you develop the systems to be able to be consistent and to check in with yourself and hold yourself accountable when you're implementing new habits, whether it be exercise or nutrition or sleep. So that's number one. Go listen to there, create a project plan for your health. The second way you can start implementing all of these strategies for your mental, physical, and emotional energy is a fun little strategy that I actually picked up from the book High Performance Habits by Brendon Burchard. He talks about the concept of triggers, meaning we can't rely on our busy brains to constantly be remembering all of the stuff that's on our plate, as well as to constantly be generating energy and feeling good. So what he does is he introduces the concept of triggers, meaning these are external reminders for you to proactively and intentionally change your state. So there are 4 types of triggers that he talks about that I'm going to share with you. Number 1 is a notification trigger. So what you would do is something like maybe 4 or 5 times during the day, you set an alarm on your phone, and maybe it'll have a phrase like energy up, or it'll have something like where is your thinking? What is going on like right now? How do you feel right now? Using your cell phone alarm as a reminder and something that vibrates in your pocket or buzzes that brings you back and makes you be intentional about your energy. Number 2, he calls doorway triggers. So whenever you walk through a doorway, whether it is to a room, to your house, any type of doorway, you can use that as a trigger to check in and bump up your energy. I really like this one, especially when I'm seeing my clients, because normally I drop off my daughter with my mom and she watches her while I have my client calls. And when I walk in the door to my house, I always think, energy up. Let's go. I've got to show up as my best. The third type of trigger he talks about is a waiting trigger. So when you are standing in line at the grocery store or you are waiting in traffic, these are wonderful opportunities where you're not doing anything anyways to practice bringing your energy up, your physical energy, your mental, and your emotional. How can you change your thinking so that it is more lively, the tone of your thinking, the volume? All of these things can be practiced while you're just waiting there. And lastly, it's a stress trigger. So a stress trigger could be, say if you're sitting at your desk and you find yourself getting overwhelmed, or you find you're snapping a bit more, or you're not feeling as into it anymore. This is a trigger to push back from your desk. Maybe get up, move your body physically, watch what you're thinking, and take some time to take some deep breaths and refocus back in. So triggers: notification, doorway, waiting, and stress. You can use these to constantly have your energy and your practice of cultivating energy on demand. It's all about being intentional with it. So I have given you a ton of ideas and resources on this podcast today about how to have more energy. It's not just about working out. It's not just about eating well. It all comes together. It's symbiotic in the way that you set up your lifestyle. So this is where I'm going to ask you, how are you going to implement this? What is the system you're going to set up so that your energy is non-negotiable in your life, in your business? If you haven't considered it, I would love for you to join me in my one-on-one coaching program called Becoming Limitless. We are going to create a set of standard operating procedures where we know exactly what goes on during your week that is going to bring up your mental, physical, and emotional energy. So if you are wanting someone to hold you accountable, to be able to hold your energy and your goals high up and make sure that you rise to your own standards, I would love for you to book a consult with me directly. You can either go to tanessashears.com/work with me, or you can DM me on Instagram, find my email. Like, these are all ways you can get a hold of me, but I want you to take that step if you're ready for it. If you're on the fence, this 1-hour free consultation I offer is a wonderful way to explore your options. And if anything, you will have a completely clear idea of the inflammation that is creeping into your lifestyle and where you are actually losing your energy. So if you have been waiting, this is your sign. What the heck are you waiting for? Book a consultation with me and let's start working together to biohack your energy and having you enjoying the life that you are creating for yourself with your business. I am looking forward to seeing you in my inbox and talking to you on our consultation. Have a wonderful week, and we will talk to you next time. Bye. Ready to begin each day feeling energized and focused? I'd love to work with you one-on-one. In my Becoming Limitless program, you're going to learn how to optimize your brain and body with science and biohacking so you can be highly productive and grow your business faster. Join me over at tanessashears.com/work with me. I'll see you there.